Today we have Rachel on. And Rachel, tell us where you're from.
Yeah, so I'm from Nashville, Tennessee.
So Rachel's from Nashville, and I looked at different statistics on the population of Nashville. It's like anywhere from 1.2 million to 2 million people in Nashville. So, down here in Georgia, when we think of Nashville, we just think of this really fun place, vibrant place, tons of young people. It would just seem like, the dating culture would be just impossibly easy there. But Rachel, tell us what it's like been living in Nashville.
Yeah, Nashville's really fun. There's like a mixture of different people. I mean, thousands upon thousands of people are moving there literally every single day. And so you get a lot of backgrounds and just different cultures and different things like that. And so, yeah, it's a really fun place.
Well, Rachel's single. She's in her early 30s. She's on fire for the Lord, and she has a lot of talent, a lot of skills. She likes to play music. But I think as most young people today, most of us want to be married. So how do you feel like dating has changed in like the last 6 years? Maybe like for me after COVID, it just seemed like dating was always hard even before COVID, but after COVID, it seemed like it got so much harder. So how do you feel about that? I mean, I'm a man. I'm a man, so I can only talk about dating from a male perspective. I hear my female friends. At the same time, I think it's really nice to have female friends where you understand the flip side of the coin and understand what women are going through, because I see this gender war all the time where men feel like, oh, it's women's fault, and women feel like, oh, it's guys' fault. But I think if you have other female friends, they can kind of give you a perspective of what it's like as a female. So how do you feel dating has changed in the last 6 years?
Yeah, I think like a huge factor in that is the whole internet, social media age. I just feel like a lot of people are really engaging in this swipe culture and just really changing the dynamic rapidly. And I think it's turned into more so like me focused, and as opposed to like I want to find someone that I can serve. And so obviously social media has a lot to do with that. And, I think it's up to us to change that dynamic.
Cool. So a lot of guys will say, you don't hear it quite as much from the women, but you'll hear a lot of guys in their circles saying they think the feminist movement has had a huge involvement in the difficulty of dating. From a woman's perspective, you have first wave feminism and second wave feminism, where it was like the first wave was just like, let's give women the right to vote, let's give women the right to own property. And then you have like this second wave feminism where it's like, let's equalize the genders, let's have this egalitarian type of mindset where women are not only just as capable of men, but maybe even superior to men in some ways. So do you feel like that may have shifted the dynamics of the dating culture?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough question. I know it's like a really sensitive topic, especially for women, and I empathize with women who have experienced any form of like abuse or anything, and like relationship or anything. It's not really like this black and white issue. I'm a follower of Jesus, so I don't really consider myself a feminist by any means, but I think there's a whole lot of layers behind why people would consider themselves a feminist, and I think a lot of that has to do with their upbringing, and I forget what the statistic is, but like I dare say like 70% of people have grown up without a dad, and I know that has played a lot in the dynamic of being a feminist, because obviously as a woman you're supposed to be, like covered and taken care of, but if that covering isn't there, then you're kind of forced to fend for yourself and take care of yourself. And if you go into a relationship where the man isn't properly acting in his masculine, if you call it, then women are more inclined to want to step up and lead because they feel forced to. I can say that without a doubt. That's how a lot of women feel being in a relationship, and that's just, it's sad because like, I know like that's not really what God intended. I mean, obviously, like, I think it's just important, like, as followers of Christ to follow that example and what it looks like, and to be a woman of God. We need to look at the Bible and what it looks like, and like I always love using Proverbs 31 woman, because a lot of people think, oh, she's just a girl who like bakes sour bread at home and does all this stuff. She doesn't really do anything, but that's like the complete opposite. Like the Proverbs 31 woman was like out there, and she was like making investments. She had her own business, and she was like networking and and doing all this stuff. She was a leader, and and I think if we like look at the Bible and actually see, it's like women can be leaders, and I think the enemy likes to distort the truth, and I think that's exactly what the feminist movement has done.
It's good. Yeah. I like what she said about going back to the father, like the absence of a strong father figure, or maybe growing up in an abusive home, or, women, a father's like a woman's first love. And so if that connection is broken, I've seen in my circles, and I can only speak from an empirical sense of this, I can't say it experientially, but empirically I've seen like women who had fathers that were absent, they usually were a little clueless about how to date. So I think she's alluding to that. And then Proverbs 31 woman, yeah, she was, I think what a lot of people miss in that, most of the time people just go straight to like the business mindset. But then even the Proverbs 31 woman, she was married, she had children, and she did this under the umbrella of her husband. And so, and he was proud of her. I think that was a really big deal. Like in the gates, he said, there's no one better than you. Like, I think it's really great as a woman when you are, type A maybe, and you're getting things done. Your husband approves of it. So it's really great. So, and she's doing all this, not to advance her career, but to advance her husband and her family and her children. So, dating apps. Mm-hmm. So Rachel probably has an aversion to dating apps, I think, but she's tried dating apps for better or for worse. So hot take, are dating apps for everyone that is single, or just certain single people can should all of us like just get on dating apps, or do you think there's really dating apps are just for the type, the just certain types of people, like other personalities don't fit, or just everyone should get on it? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. Like, yeah, I know actually a lot of people who have met their significant other on the apps. But I think just about like what I said earlier about like the whole social media take, I think it's really kind of changed people's mindset a lot in a negative way. I think more so than positive, and that's why I'm more so against dating apps. I think there's people out there that can find their person 100%, but I don't really think it helps with the overall dynamic of what's happening in our culture right now, and just like training our brains that, oh, I can just swipe, and like basically shopping for a person based on my needs and what I want. And that's like the complete opposite of like, I think what God intended for relationships in general. If we even strip it back further than dating, just like relationships, like God wants us to be in healthy community and have healthy relationships. And I would never really like go up to someone looking for a friend asking what they can do for me. And so why would I do that with a romantic partner? And I think it really takes away the sincerity and authenticity when you try and find someone, because you literally have like 0.3 seconds to decide if you want to like pursue this person based on their pics and a couple of like really funny one-liners that really aren't that funny. So I really think it just kind of takes away the authentic, real, raw, like, process. So personally, yeah, I'm not really for apps, but I know it's worked for other people, so.
Yeah. So I guess she's saying that there's more like a 3D way to understand people, whereas dating apps is like 5 seconds. I don't like their nose, boom, I'm swiping left. So I don't like their hair. You think there's more like a holistic way to understand?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and honestly though, I like one of my big mottos is I'm always willing to be proven wrong, and I'm always willing to grow. But if you want to know more information, shameless plug, but follow me on Rachel Unhinged. I have this whole community online on Instagram, and I'm just really trying to encourage people to like kind of step away from the dating apps and really just pursue Christ as a whole and discover what it means to like build healthy relationships out of the apps. But I always say, like, yeah, like I'm always willing to be proven wrong. And so, hey, if God has someone for me online, then maybe that's the way. We'll see. Only time will tell.
Cool. Yeah. Well, so you hear this other phrase all the time. I hear, in fact, shocking enough, when I pulled my phone out this morning, I think they said the worst thing to do is pull your phone out in the morning and look at it. That was the first thing I did this morning. But the first meme I pulled up this morning literally said, I have this desire to get married, and I don't think God would have given me this desire if he didn't have plans for me to get married. Is that a doctrinally sound concept?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Honestly, I don't have all the answers to that question, to be honest. It's like, okay, if God gave me this desire, can I get married? And I would say statistically, probably, but statistics based on what? I have no idea. I think God does give us desires for a reason. And whether that's to fulfill them, or God to show us something deeper than that desire, I think those are both viable options, but, I know people who have had a desire to have certain things, have kids, and it's never happened, and so that's really, really hard, but I always say just, unless God 100% says otherwise, keep praying and believing for it. I'd rather like hope and believe and pray and pray and pray till the day I die, and then I finally receive it, to just not tried and hope for it at all,
Right. I guess you could say if you have zero desire to get married, then you probably should not.
Right.
I mean,
definitely.
maybe God may bring someone, but you're probably going to mistreat that person because you didn't really desire them anyway. So you kind of fulfill your own prophecy, I think, if you enter this mindset of, oh, I'm so content, single, and I don't even want anybody. It's hard to get married with that mindset. It's hard to at least treat someone, wholesomely in a dating situation if you are fully content in your singleness and you don't really want anybody anyway. Like, I think some bit of desire for the other person has to be there. So, so anyway, another hot take. Here's so many single people saying, my church is not doing enough to help singles. There's no singles ministry. They seem like they forget about us singles. Married people just are so engrossed in themselves and they don't help us single people out. Do you think churches in general are doing enough to initiate the fellowship of single people in a wholesome environment and bring them together so that they are fit and ready for dating?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think as a whole, the Big C Church has kind of missed the mark on that one. I think like there's small initiatives, like depending on what church you go to, like, but I think there definitely needs to be more equipping, because I think again, like, I think the collective consensus is like dating is really, really difficult for a lot of people right now, and it's just there's a lot of reasons for that, but I think, like, as a whole, like, people need to be trained just about, I think, moral ethics, and just like I would even say just start at the very bottom and get the foundational truths. I think people have forgotten like what it is to be a friend. In the ghosting culture, like, that's just not Christian. Like, it's just we can do better as Christians by like treating other humans with respect, and a lot of that's maturity. And if we don't know how to do that, then we're not going to know any better. So I think there definitely just needs to be some practicals that churches like want to equip, because like, like, we need to be equipped for that. It's literally like the biggest decision someone can ever make outside of following Christ. And so there's a lot of training that goes into that, really. And
Right.
I think a lot of that translates from just being a follower of Christ, to be honest. Like learning how to be a servant. What does it mean to be a servant? You know, like a lot of these foundational principles, they transfer over to a marriage, you know, and just like connecting those dots for people.
Right.
And the qualifications, I've never really heard one of my pastors or whoever like preach about what are the qualifications of a husband, you know, and like really just dive in, because a lot of people, they want to know the truth and like what to look for, you know, but we're kind of learning on our own in like some difficult situations maybe. And it'd be cool if like someone would sit down with me and tell me all the stuff that I know now. You know, I wish that were the case, but now like it's my mission to like share now what I know so that I can help people and show them, hey, this is what to look out for, this is what to avoid, this is what, you know, what it looks like to be a healthy, godly Christian. So
you think churches may need to create some doctrinal homogeny among people so that people can like at least not be disagreeing philosophically, doctrinally, just so that they're like congruent and can come together and have like the same mindset, fit to be a spouse. Like so many people have all, like you have the Methodists, you have the Pentecostal, you have the Baptists, you just have all these different, you know, ways of viewing the gospel. And so then that already is like an impediment to like getting married, because you're like, well, you go to a Baptist church, I go to a Methodist, or just all these different theological differences. You think churches need to like work together to like form unity first in thought? Or do you feel like churches are just like, y'all are a lost cause, it's just too much drama, single people are single for a reason, that's why we don't want to touch that? Do you feel like it's more of a doctrinal homogeny issue, or just more like churches feel like we're going to step on people's toes by bringing people who have all these differences, or whatever the reason is that you can't date? You just feel like they feel like it's just too touchy. What do you think?
no, I don't think it's like a sensitive topic. I think they know they're struggling. I think there's like a lack of understanding of what's happening in the culture. And I think again, like there's just like a huge disconnect. I don't think a lot of these older people understand like how difficult it is, you know, but I think like it's really, really important as a whole, like to equip people, you know, and teach people like what it is. If you want to be a Christian, or if you want to be like a spouse one day, this is what it looks like. Not only as a spouse, but as a follower of Christ, you know, and like, pursue healthiness and wholeness. And now generally, like, I think some churches, like they do pursue like healthiness and wholeness. But really just like honing in on, hey, if like you don't have your finances in order, you know, definitely get your finances in order if you're a man and you're like searching for a wife, like just like different things like that. Or if you have like some serious addiction issues, like get that sorted out, not because you want to be like a spouse first, but because like this is what we need to do as followers of Christ in community as well.
Yeah, I resonate with that. I'm gonna do an entire podcast on like addictions, because, man, and I think when we think addictions, we think of like drugs or alcohol, but addictions go way beyond that. Like video games, I think we can talk about that too. But sometimes it's just maybe your hobby has become more of an addiction. So yeah, I think that's really good. So anyway, I could talk all day about what men say about women, but as a woman, what is your biggest complaint? Like among your female friends, I'm sure you girls talk and you like, man, I wish guys would just stop this one thing. Like, this is the biggest pet peeve I have with trying to date guys. What has kind of been that central theme among you females when you talk about guys and the difficulty it is to secure a good guy?
Yeah, I know. I think that the consensus is men are not asking out women anymore. It's just not happening, and they're going on the apps. I really do think God has called people higher than that. I think God has called men to be men of courage and boldness. And I know the other side, men are like, oh, well, I always get rejected, or she's always surrounded by her friends, or, I hear that as well, and I get it. But it's just really disappointing, and I know it's extremely intimidating, and I don't really think it has to be that difficult. And I think if you look at the person as a human being rather than some goal to achieve, you really humanize the situation. And that's what I really encourage people to do. Just be human, and just if you just really level the playing field, even though you're scared to death out of your mind to approach a girl,
right.
Just approach her as a sister in Christ. It's not a big deal. Just start up a conversation. Be like, hey, I saw you across the room and I just wanted to say, hey, it really isn't that big of a deal. And if you really level it like that and just normalize, and that's why I tell people, the more you get off the internet, social media, dating apps, the more that you can actually build your confidence and talk to people like it's normal, and you will normalize having conversations with random people. It won't feel as intimidating. It still hurts when you get rejected, and I can't imagine that dynamic. But I have insanely gorgeous friends that are single because men don't ask them out, and they're gorgeous. They're absolutely beautiful. And men just don't ask them out. I'm like, okay, we need to change this because...
You think men don't ask them out, or the men they want don't ask them out?
No, I think most men are not asking them out. Because,
But they are getting asked out, just not the men that want.
No, they don't get asked
They don't
out.
get out, period. Okay.
Not really.
It only takes one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one. Put her on the spot this time. Make her a little uncomfortable, Do you feel uncomfortable dating a guy that is several inches shorter than you? Or maybe he makes less money than you. Let's say you make let's say you make 50,000.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy is he's struggling. He's at 30,000. Would you feel comfortable dating him? Or maybe he's just unemployed. He's 40 years old. He's been unemployed for a couple of years. He's kind of doing some Uber drives here and there, kind of taking care of mom and dad, kind of floating. You really don't know exactly how he's even affording what he has, but he definitely doesn't have a job. Or maybe, I know I'm throwing all these in because they seem to have the same psychological effect when it comes to dating. Or he's just less educated than you. He didn't graduate high school. He dropped out. Seems like a pretty smart guy, but I'm not saying that he can't form a sentence, or maybe he can't form a sentence, but he doesn't really have the educational background. You can talk about certain tech terms, and he's just he doesn't understand the jargon. Or maybe he's less traveled than you. You've been to London. You've kind of seen some of the world. I tried to take her to Atlanta, honestly, and she was like, "Oh, I already been there." And I'm like, "Have you been here?" "Oh, I already been there." And I'm like, "I can't take you anywhere you haven't been." So we were just doing a tour of Atlanta. And I had a female friend in Nashville tell me, this was another time. I was in Greenville, and she was like, "I've traveled all over the world, and I don't want to date a man unless he's has this travel mindset." I have an also friend in Atlanta who's done all these mission trips abroad, and she's like, "I want a mission-minded guy. If he's never done a mission trip, never done anything abroad, he's probably not my type of guy." Throwing all these into one basket and just kind of saying, as a girl, or do you feel like you're kind of settling? They always use the term settling. Do you feel like you're settling when the guy is a little short king? I hate the term short king, but you see it all the time on memes. Mm-hmm. I don't like calling women queens, and I don't like calling guys kings. It's just not my thing. Go for it if you think it's your thing. What about these short, uneducated, unemployed, untraveled guys? What do you think? It don't have to be all of those at the same time.
Yeah, right.
But what do you think?
Yeah, I think for me, I prayed about it, and my limit is my height. I am 5'10", and I think that's fair. I know a lot of girls, they're pretty strict on the 6 foot rule. And I think that's a bit ridiculous just because you're limiting a lot of like really great people. So I've kind of landed on like my height. Anything shorter than me, sorry. Like I, yeah, it's just not my thing personally. Um, but comfortable dating a guy that makes less than me. Yeah, I think it depends on his situation. If it's like, I think for me personally, like the bigger picture is his drive and his ultimate vision and plan for his life. If he's like making less temporarily and there's a reason for it, then like I'm more inclined to like be a little empathetic towards that. But long term, if that doesn't change or he has no plan to get out of that, then no, like I can't, just because I really do believe like men, like are meant to be leaders in that way and like be the provider. He doesn't have to be a millionaire though, like,
Well,
but I think,
let's stretch this a little bit. Let's say you're making 100,000 and he's making 75,000.
yeah, I think that's fair. That's a little bit more fair, but like 30K, you can't survive off that. Like, yeah. So, unemployed, nah. I've gone down that path before, and I'm not doing that. So, less educated really doesn't bother me as much. Like their drive and their worth ethic is really like what's the most important to me. And
Right.
I know a lot of people have a little bit more hands-on experience, and they're really, really successful entrepreneurs. Like my brother, he's an entrepreneur and he didn't go to college and he's like absolutely crushing it. So, it really just depends on the situation.
And less traveled than you.
Yeah.
Or when I say less traveled, I'm not saying you've been to 50 countries and he's been to 20. I mean, he's never left his hometown. He's never seen the ocean. He's never been hiking. He can barely point to the state of Utah on a map.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty important. I wouldn't say it's like a deal breaker. It would cause some question for me. Like, yeah, he doesn't have to have gone to all the countries that I've been to, but I think it's important that you've gone somewhere. Like, first of all, just because compatibility wise, I love to travel and like I love going to different places, but I think traveling gives you like really good life experience. And if you've never like left your hometown, then I would question if you're mature enough for a relationship because you haven't gone outside of your hometown to experience something and try and find who you are as a person.
Guys, we got to get to traveling. All right, the next one. Maybe another little bit of a sensitive one. A little early in the morning for sensitive questions, but you got to be honest with yourself. Out of all the men that you have dated, obviously they didn't work out, but is there still like one that you think about all the time? You feel like if things were just a little different, or if I was just if I would have just done this differently, or if he would have just been a little closer or lived a little closer, or if this particular, maybe, I don't know, whatever the reason why it didn't work happened. You just constantly like run this scenario through your mind over and over. I wish I would have done this. I wish this would have happened. And that person just tugs at your heart every day. And maybe they're kind of a distant memory, but every now and then you think of them and you're like, I would have totally married that person. I will still marry that person even today if they asked me, or if they came back into my life. Is there just somebody that you're kind of holding on to in the past? And do you feel, and to kind of extend that a little bit, do you feel like most girls have this one guy that they have kind of like pedestalized in their mind that they've always loved, and every other guy that comes in their life has to at least equate that guy, and if he doesn't equal that guy, they just kind of write him off? Do you feel like they're just that longing for that one particular guy that you've had in your past?
Well, to answer your first question, like, I mean, there's a couple of people like, and I think specifically that there were just very, very healthy relationships that I honestly use as like kind of a template in the best way. And I think God allowed me to like go through those situations just so I could see what exactly like I do deserve, and sometimes I look back, but I try not to stay in the past because that's not healthy. And like, there's a reason why things don't work out, and if you start looking in the past, wonder what you did wrong, then, that's just not like a really good, healthy mindset to have. All you can do is like learn from that situation and take it as an experience that God gave you. And yeah, so I have like a couple of people that I think I'm like, wow, like it was such like a healthy relationship. And I'm very thankful that it wasn't traumatizing or anything like that, and just very thankful for the time that we had together. And, I know that they would say the same, like complete and utter respect for each other, but there's a reason why things don't work out. And so all you can do is just move on and like pray that you'll find like someone that treats you as well as that person did, which, I believe there's always someone out there that can do that. So,
Right. I'm gonna kind of change this question a little bit and say, if you have a healthy dad in your life, I've heard so many women say, I want to date my dad. Not that they want to date their dad himself, but date a man that resembles their dad. I feel like as a man, we don't really think like, I want to date a girl like my mom. I don't really normally think like that. But maybe that's just my own peculiar relationship with my mom. Now, I love the qualities of my mom, but do I want to date a girl that really resembles these same qualities of my mom? Not necessarily. I don't know that would really be how I think as a man, but I hear this all the time from women. They want to date their dad. So do you feel like that's a pretty common theme for women or for you specifically?
yeah, I think probably there's a subconscious element. I think more oftentimes than not, people are looking for their mom or their dad, and just because it's like they're hardworking, they're driven, they are their protector, and like, and you've seen that in action. And so with your dad, if you have like a healthy relationship with him, and so it makes total sense to want to date someone that has those aspects, because like your dad's supposed to be your role model, or like even with your mom, like certain tendencies, very nurturing and just very loving and really good with kids. Like
Right.
those are obvious things that if you've had a healthy background, like you really want, and you've seen it in real time.
So basically, yes. I have never heard a guy say that, though, that he wants to date a girl that's like his mom. Maybe they do, but
I've seen it subconsciously, like people be like, oh, you remind me of my mom. And I'm like, okay, well, I think you're probably subconsciously looking out for someone who's your mom. Like,
right.
but, that's a whole other side tangent. But, like, I definitely don't want to be anyone's mom. That's not really what I meant. But, yeah.
Right. Totally get it. All right. So I look at all these dating forums and Christian dating groups and all that, and so many guys will get on there and be like, so what are you women looking for? And all the women, and even when I go to a woman, I'd be like, so what are you looking for? And they all say the same thing. I want an honest, faithful, loving, loyal gentleman. He needs to be romantic, needs to be church going, a man that's serving God. They just always say that all the time. And I'm like, but what are you actually looking for? Because I know of a lot of men like that. And they're like, no, I mean, I'm pretty open. Like, long as he's a good, hardworking Christian man who's going to pray with me. And then, so then I introduced them to a guy, and they were like, no, I don't like him. And I'm like, okay, so obviously physical characters matter to women. I would say, in my opinion, I think physical characters matter to women just as much as they do to men. But women just look at different things. For example, she said women are looking at height, whereas men, I don't think men really care about height. I don't think height is quite something that we really look for. And so, putting you on the spot again, what are some physical traits? We already mentioned height, so we already kind of touched on that. But what about like beard, mustache? And then maybe even if a guy did not 100% match the physical traits you find attractive, do you feel like attraction can grow even if the physical is not there? Do you feel like, when I say grow, not just grow, but grow into like a full-blown marriage-minded type of love?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really super picky about physical. I mean, I just have to be attracted to them. And obviously that's like different. Like maybe in the past I've had a certain type. But that doesn't really matter to me anymore because the character characteristics are what's really important to me, honestly. Um, and I think for women it is different because we're more emotional creatures. We connect through the emotional bond. And so, yeah, like physical attraction can grow because if a man like treats a woman well, it tends to grow a little bit more. And we take a little bit more time to kind of like build that relational equity, I think, on our end. But I would say as a caveat, like if you are not attracted to the person that you're dating after 4 or 5 days and you're kind of on the fence, please end it. Like, cause it's, attraction is important. And I don't care how spiritual you are. Like, I'm a very practical person too. And like, it is really important cause
Right.
like, and older people say, oh, it won't matter, when you're like 80. Yeah, it won't matter when you're 80, but it does matter when you're like 20, 30, and 40, and personally, I just like ask people end it if you're just not feeling it because you're kind of hurting that person in the long run. And I say that as someone who's done that, who's been there, who kind of extended things a little way too long. And because I was kind of waiting for that like physical attraction to grow and it just didn't. And that person was like very good to me and kind, but it was just like it's not there. And so like definitely cut it off because you're hurting that person in the long run.
Wow. So physical looks does matter to women.
Mm-hmm.
Just as much as men, I think. I think they just look for different things. I always say this, and I'll formalize this maybe later, but I feel like for men, a woman's face is 50% of the formula and a woman's body is 50% of the formula, whereas for women, it seems like a man's face is like 80% of the formula and his body is like 20%. Like, I know girls that are like, oh, he's got a dad bod, I'm digging that. Like, but guys are never going to dig like a, the kind of things that women are like prioritizing. And I even noticed that when women like take selfies, it's like this top down photo and it's just all, sometimes she may have 100 photos of just her face. Mm-hmm. And so it seems like girls really do prioritize. I mean, they spend an hour in the morning getting their face ready, right? So, but for us guys, I know from a guy's perspective, face matters, but everything, like we look at you from head to toe and everything matters. But guys get a lot of like flack online when they like reject really good Christian women who maybe not be physically attractive. There's like a lot of women will attack them and say, well, it's probably because you're addicted to porn and porn has like warped your sense of what beauty is. And you're just looking for these fit women. And I think there's great women out there who may not look like a model. And so men get a lot of flack, by rejecting unattractive women who may still have a heart for God. As a woman, do you feel like the same critique is there, or do you feel bad when you were like reject a really good man but he just doesn't have the physical characteristics, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, like I heard this quote. It says like chemistry gets you there, but character keeps you there. And like chemistry is the first step into like maybe initiating something. It's like it's instant, I'm attracted to you.
Right.
But really, at the end of the day, it is their character. And if, like, you can be the hottest guy on the planet, 6'5", fine-ass guy, blue eyes, but if you're a jerk and you claim to be a Christian, but you're really not, then goodbye. Like, I don't want anything to do with you. Like, I don't care how hot you are, And I think, that really should be, like, the standard for men and women. Like, attraction is important, but really, like, character supersedes all of that, And, like, I don't think the face is 80% like important to a girl. Like I think women are probably a lot more open, to dating guys with like an average face, or whatever it is. Because it is true. Like we do want to be taken care of. Like we want someone that we can share our highs and lows with, and that chemistry does have to be there, but it's not the end and be all, So we have to stay open as people, and like, it like as far as like physical traits goes, it depends on your values too. Like, I just got into fitness in the last 5 or so months, and so that's something I really do value in a guy, and like, I would be less inclined to be with a guy that doesn't take care of himself at all, and so that's really important to me. It has something to do with like looks. It's just like values, and like I want to like treat my body as a temple. And so you just make sure your values are aligned. So yeah.
It's really cool. Well, that pretty much ends it for this. Rachel lives in Nashville. We love Nashville. I love Nashville. Like, and when I go, she's just like the friend I will call and be like, "Hey, I'm in Nashville again." So we've just had this platonic friendship for, I guess, for like, I'd say about 4 years. So she's single. She's looking. She's not desperately looking, but she's looking, and she's a quick catch. So anyway, if anyone's in Nashville, let me know. She has a huge Christian network in Nashville. Like, she has a lot of amazing friends that I've hung out with, and But anyway, you're originally from Baton Rouge, though, right?
Yeah.
So
Baton
she
Rouge,
probably
Louisiana.
has. So if you have like connections in Baton Rouge, maybe you have something in common. If you have connections in Tennessee, maybe you have something in common with her. And yeah, that concludes this episode. Thank you so much, Rachel, for being on.
Thanks.